Well, it brings me just such joy to introduce this guest and this co-host because today is just so wonderful and so exciting. This is Chelsy and Allison.
Hello, hello.
With the Healing Art podcast, and we have our just gem of a client here, Sarah.
Hello.
And she is here to kind of give us a sneak peek into her life and her experience working with both of us and how her life has changed dramatically and what she now sees as her future.
And what a journey of healing looks like for somebody who is not on the healthcare side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. So tell us, Sarah, a little bit about kind of where you were a couple years ago and what made you think, like, this is no longer how I choose to live my life for that first go around.
So I started college, and I had grown up, like, in a very Christian, non-denominational, but still very Christian, very conservative area. And then I came to college, and I came to Columbus, and it was a big culture shock. I had a boyfriend at the time, and then we broke up, and then I dove even deeper into religion, and there had always been these things that I considered my core beliefs that I had always believed but contradicted what I was being taught and what I was being told. And I decided, well, it's something to do with me. Like, there's something wrong with me. I just need to try harder. I need to do better. I need to work harder at being a better Christian. And so that's what I did. It was summer of 2021. I went on a Christian camp type thing over the summer, and I put my whole heart and soul into it. And by the end, there were still a lot of questions that were being met with vague answers, and a lot of things that I still deep within my soul, I could feel like this isn't right. There's something wrong here. There's something that doesn't feel right here. And so then I came back from that, started school again, and then I reconnected with my mom, who I hadn't spoken to in 2-3 years. And we sat down, we spoke, and she told me kind of her side of the story of how my childhood went, and I had never heard it before. And I kind of realized, a lot of what I believed about how I grew up, about even my parents' relationship and their relationship with me and my sisters, was a lie. And a lot of it was orchestrated by my dad, and I had no idea. And so then I started to think, okay, if this is a lie, then what else is a lie? And I just started deconstructing everything that I believed. And then I realized, I don't actually believe this. Like, I was just being told this, and so I believed it. And then I had seen you before that summer. And I had struggled with pelvic floor disorder since I was 15. And I didn't even get diagnosed until I was 20. And then I started meeting with you. And then I went through that summer, and then I went through this whole spiral after I spoke to my mom, because then I had no foundation. I had no foundation, and that's so scary. And everyone who I've talked to who has kind of gone through the same thing with kind of deconstructing their conservative or religious beliefs has said the same thing. Like, it's just so scary to not believe anything when that's the foundation of how you live your entire life. But then I started meeting with you again, and I started to kind of look into myself and say, okay, well, if I don't believe anything religiously, what do I believe, like, in my heart, in my soul? What have been the foundations that I have built upon from as long as I can remember? And some of, like, the biggest ones were justice and empathy, and I just led with that. And from there, you connected me to Chelsy, and then my world was, like, really opened. I feel like the physical part of me was healing, but there was something that was blocking me from really getting over that last hump of there's something holding me back, and it was myself. But yeah, then I got connected with you, and my whole life has changed, because I honestly, when I introduce the two of you to anyone, I say these are the two women who have single-handedly like saved my life. Aww. Because I needed that extra support. I needed almost like an outside force to say, this is okay, and you're doing the right thing because this is what's right for you, not what's right for a collective. And that's kind of how I've continued to live my life since then. More so as there are rules within like a religious background where these are rules that we all have to follow because this is what's best for all of us. Well, those rules didn't work for me, and they didn't help me, and so I've kind of started to create my own rules and my own guide for my own life, and that has been the most helpful for me.
How incredible. I'm just blown away.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you thought was the reason for your symptoms the first time around versus what you thought about your symptoms the second time around?
The first time around, honestly, I thought it was genetic. Like my mom talked about how she had terrible periods when she was growing up. And so did a lot of her sisters, and my dad's sisters the same way. And so I was like, well, this is just something that's happening to me because this is just in my family. Whereas now I feel so much more connected to my body, and I know exactly when I'm going to have a flare-up or why I feel the way I feel, why my body is reacting the way that it is. And I understand that it is a reaction. It's not just out of my control.
Yeah.
So.
When was it that you kind of started recognizing that, like, oh, my emotions do play a role in my pain?
I think the second time I started meeting with you, and you were asking me questions like, okay, when you do have anxiety, where do you feel it in your body? And I had never thought about that. I was just, oh, it's all in my mind. But when I really thought about it, I was like, oh, yeah. When I do have anxiety, I feel it in my chest. I feel it in like my heart. I feel like my whole body is like clenching. And that makes so much sense because pelvic floor disorder, your muscles are just constantly stressed and not relaxed. And so once I started working on my anxiety and where that's coming from, then the pain started to ease as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How incredible. It's awesome. So what was it that really pushed you to take that leap and reach out to me?
Because, I mean, this might sound bad, but I was
Go
desperate.
ahead. Yeah.
I was. And I have always felt very spiritual. I've always felt very connected to a higher power, whatever it may be. Even though I couldn't define it at the time, especially when I left my religious background and beliefs. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know how to define it, but I knew that I was connected to it. And I've always been interested in spirituality and things of that nature. And so it was curiosity and desperation for change, because I was so desperate to get over this, because intellectually I could see where I was going wrong and why this was happening to me and why I still had pain, but I couldn't work it out for myself.
Right. That's incredible. So you had this very, very strong self-awareness in this whole journey where you were able to really like key into your experience, because not everybody is able to do that, and identify where you're like, I know that I have the ability to move through this, but something's blocking me and I don't know what that is, and I need support from the outside to see that external blockage.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible. I feel like a lot of times people in their healing journey get to that moment of desperation, of overwhelm, of frustration, and they double down, right? Because it's that growth edge that then makes you feel like, oh no, I started getting improvement with Allison. My body started feeling better. I started having a better awareness and a better connection to my facility and understanding myself better. But the pain didn't completely go away.
Mm-hmm.
So I must just be the problem. I must not be doing it right? Like that's typically how it happens. Or there's that self-sabotage that comes in that's like, well, you just need to be better, Allison. You just need to be better, okay?
Right. That's usually the case.
Yeah.
Allison, just get better.
Exactly. But you were able to identify that, like, the path was not linear and that you were feeling this adversity for a reason and that there was a step to take.
Right.
How did you feel after the first session?
I think I had not, like, let myself cry in probably, like, over a month, and that's a long time for me. I cry a lot. And I think I cried for a straight hour after I talked to you. Just not of, like, sadness, but just of relief. Just pure relief, because I could feel I could feel my whole body just relax. It was like I had been storing this little secret inside my heart for years, and finally to let it out and to look at it from a different perspective was incredible. I just, honestly, the biggest word that I can think of, the biggest feeling I can think of is just relief.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
When you started making that connection about the fact that, like, you had mentioned, I started off kind of thinking, my body's just broken. This is just what I was born with. This is just how it is. I go and see Allison so that she can help me feel better, right? It was very much like a passive role, right? And then you went to camp, right? And so it was like you were gone for quite a while. And it was, like maybe a year? Was it a year almost until you came back?
Yeah, because it was right before, I mean, it would have been almost exactly a year, because I stopped seeing you because I moved. I moved to Michigan to do that for 3 months, and then I came back, and then I was I mean, when I did go through that whole transition of I don't subscribe to this anymore,
that was huge.
I went through honestly a deep depression, because all of my friends were also part of that community, and so I was not only losing, like, my belief system, but also my friends and, like, where I would go hang out. So everything, and then on top of that, my entire childhood was being called into question. And so I did not take care of myself well during that last part of the year of 2021. And then 2022 started. I got a new job, and I started making connections with new people at my job. And I realized, I can because I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to make connections with people outside of that community. And once I started to do that, then I started to really build more confidence and realize that I do have a lot more value than I give myself credit for. And my value doesn't stem from this community or my beliefs. It just stems from me. So, and then from there I was like, okay, I'm in a lot of pain, so I need to reach out to you again. So that's, kind of where.
Well, I would say, like, because you looked very different from the first time that I met you to the second time. Well, and there was also the weight loss component, where you physically looked different, and then just, like, your demeanor was different. It was much more confident. It was much more like, okay, I'm ready to actually take care of this now, versus, like, I think I'm taking care of this. And you were giving it the best you could in 2021. But I think that you coming around in 2022, I think, was very different energy that you came with. And it was much more like, what I was receiving on the practitioner side of things was, it was much more like you were looking for the answers yourself versus waiting to be told the answers from me.
That's exactly,
And so it was so cool to hear you come in and to say, like, that I had my period last week. It was terrible. However, we have this family event coming up, and I've been really stressed about that, and I feel like that's what's contributing. And I was like, that's great. That's most likely very much what is contributing to this. And then being able to kind of help you kind of recognize that, plan appropriately for that, and then not be scared of the flare. Because I think that's the big thing for people, is that they have the fear of the flare, when really the flare is just telling you we're not okay, and you haven't quite listened to us telling you we're not okay yet, so we're going to just keep being louder and louder about that. And so I think that, from my perspective on the PT side of things, that was the coolest transformation to see, was when you started like linking it together and recognizing that, like, I know where this is coming from. It's super annoying. Like, it's not scary, but it's super annoying and it's super painful. And so when you started working with Chelsy, because then you and I kind of stopped working together for a while, and it was like, it was so good to be able to hear, like, because I would still catch up with Chelsy about the care, and she was like, you're not gonna believe this, and I was like, that sounds amazing, go Sarah. She's like, she keeps saying she needs to call you, and I was like, she doesn't need to call me, she needs to keep working with you guys are doing great. Like, I will work with her when you guys feel like you're at a breaking point. That's fine. But it was a really, really cool transition to see, just like your demeanor from 2021 to your demeanor in 2022, just totally different. So.
Yeah, and I have not experienced this much change at this high volume ever. I mean, I've changed more in the last 2 years than my entire life combined. So, and that change has been scary. And I think that that's initially why I didn't reach out to you the second time, because there was so much change happening. It was overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It does get overwhelming.
Oh, yeah. You're like, wait a second. How powerful am I?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
This is wild. So in all of that change, in all that transformation, how has your experience been integrating that into the life that you are living? So you're talking about creating new connections outside of that community and really building a life for yourself. How has your family received this new you, and how has the people who have been there, who are, because I know you still have some friendships from that area of your life, how are they receiving this new you? How's that been?
I think that they're ecstatic. I mean, they really, I've had people tell me that, like, the light has come back into my eyes. Like, I feel like you can feel, just my energy is so much different. Even when I just, like, walk into a room, the way I present myself, the way that I feel in social situations, it's all different. I don't feel like a completely new person, because that old part of me is still there, but I understand what she wants. I understand what she needs. I understand what's going to trigger me, and boundaries that I need to make for myself, and that boundaries are okay. I don't need to accommodate to everyone in order to create friendships and grow friendships. I can just be me, and they can accept that, or they can not.
Wow.
And that's okay. And that was one of the biggest things for me, because I'm such a people pleaser. And talking.
What's that like?
Yeah. So when I did initially talk to my family, who is still religious, I mean, they were devastated. I mean, some of them were anyway. They were sad that I was no longer subscribing to this, but they could also see how much happier I was. And so that to them was more important.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't always go that way.
Right.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
Because I know that wasn't the story for your mom, right?
Yeah.
So it's really great that that's been kind of the case for you guys, or for you, I mean. I think the thing that I'm hearing most about yourself right now is, like, you have such a compassion for yourself that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this very, like, how you present now is just this very calm and confident and compassionate person that it's like, you know, things are gonna happen. I might make mistakes. I might let a boundary slip here and there, and I'm probably gonna have a physical response to that later, but that's okay. I'm still learning. I'm still growing, and I don't need everybody to love me. I could love myself enough that I get to choose who I have in my circle. And when you kind of go into those conversations and just kind of letting people know, like, I would love for you to still be part of my life, but this is what my life is going to look like now. I think that was awesome. I'm just very impressed with somebody your age. These changes. I mean, some of us waited until their mid-30s. I don't know.
I'm sitting here like, can we just for a second recap that I asked you how everybody else in your circle was dealing with the new you, and your answer was about yourself. You were like, I can create boundaries. I am allowed to do what I need to do for me. I'm allowed to listen to myself and love myself, and they have all just fallen in line. And how magical. How magical. I feel like for you there has been a lot of things like that where you have been up against a trigger or a wound or, you know, a growth edge, and Spirit has just shown up in the most incredible ways. So can you give us an example or like kind of any of that that's happened for you since you've started this work?
I feel like there's so much. I don't even know where to start. I since I've started working with you, I feel like I've opened up this whole new world of not only like possibilities, but connection to myself that I never thought I'd be able to get. Like, I know myself better than I ever have, and I know myself better than I ever thought I would. And that is Spirit as well. I mean, they have helped me through, I should say, guided me through my life in the last few months, and allowed me to not just blindly follow like a God that I'm being told is this way, but to follow my intuition and to trust my intuition. And when I do that, I do feel more calm about my decisions. I do feel more confident about them, and they generally do turn out better. Like the situations that I'm anxious about, if I just follow my intuition, I feel so much better about them, no matter the other person's reaction.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we've talked a little bit about kind of your childhood and the generational trauma that you carry with you, right? How has that impacted your life? How have you been able to see that shifting as well with the work that you're doing within your family?
I am definitely so I'm the first person to ever go to college. Like, both sides of the family, extended family, everything, mostly because my family's are Amish. And so that was just never a thing. Like, my mom didn't even go to high school. She begged her parents to go to high school, and she wasn't allowed to. And my parents got pregnant with me very, very young. My mom was 18, my dad was 22, and they were not married. And so what you do, or what you did at that time, is if you got pregnant, you just get married.
Yeah.
Like, whether you want to or not, and whether that's the right thing to do or not, that's just what you did. And they were together for 15 years, and I personally think they never should have gotten married, but going with that, and especially like reconnecting with my mom, we are such like kindred spirits, and having her in my life again has been huge. And there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of things that I've said to her that I regret, that she said to me that she regrets, and the same goes for my sisters and my dad and a lot of my extended family. And moving past that, or moving forward, has taken a lot more from me and a lot less from them than I thought. Like, I thought, oh, this is a problem with them, that I still feel this way. And that was not the case at all. Like, the problem is with me, because this is how I feel. They don't have control over how I feel. I do. Right. And so moving past that, I guess taking a step back, especially going to college, not living in my hometown anymore, from the beginning of that, started this kind of different perspective where I can see it from the outside in instead of inside out. And having that perspective, having that space, having that time to myself, and honestly isolating myself to just sit with myself and understand, okay, this is what happened, or this is what I believe happened, and then going back through and rethinking about it and re-remembering it and understanding what actually happened. I've been able to gain a lot of empathy and a lot of understanding for both of my parents, and where both of them were at the time, and understanding how young they were. And though it's not my fault that any of this happened, it's almost not their fault either.
Right.
Like, they were just thrown into it. This is the life that they had to lead because it was kind of forced onto them. And so and honestly, it's allowed me to see my parents as people, not just as my parents.
How
And
incredible.
that's
What
a
a gift.
crazy phenomenon to see your parents as real people, because then I've been able to empathize with them a lot more, and that I've been able to make friends out of my family rather than just, well, I'm forced to be around them because they're my family.
Yep,
right.
I have to love them because they're my family.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
You're choosing them almost.
Yeah, I'm choosing to love them now, which
That's
is,
Do you think your distance was necessary for you to make the progress that you
oh,
made?
absolutely. Because when I was growing up and when my parents first got divorced, I was 15. And my mom moved out of our house, and my dad did not take up any of her responsibilities. I did. And so I was kind of like that somewhat mother figure for my sisters and for like the household. And so to be taken out of that and for them to readjust, I think it really opened up all of their minds to how much I was doing. And I mean, since then, a couple weeks ago, I mean, my dad has never been a super strong part of my life, or super, don't want to say important, because he was important, but he just wasn't always there in the way that I needed him to be. And he definitely put pressure on me that wasn't okay, and put me into a role that I never should have been in. And a few weeks ago, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about him. I was thinking about all of the things that he needs to apologize for, or I want him to apologize for, even just to grow his soul. I was just so fearful that his soul was so stagnant and that he didn't have even a shred of remorse for what had happened. Even though a lot of it, his dad was not a great dad, and so he didn't have a great figure, but at the end of the day, he still did these things to me. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this apology that I would want to hear. And I thought about all the things that I would like him to say, and that I felt like I would need to hear eventually. And I was like, I think I'm ready for this apology. I don't think it's going to come until he's on his deathbed or our souls are in another life, but I'm ready for this whenever it comes. And I promise you, literally a week to the day after I thought about that and like sat with it and talked to my spirit guides about it, a week to the day he calls me and he gives me that apology.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's not true to character that you've seen so
No,
far.
not at all. I mean, I haven't been really connected to him. I don't know how he's doing, especially in the last 2 years, just because I didn't want to.
Right.
I was choosing to love the people that I felt were good for me, and he wasn't one of them. And then he calls me and he says, "Do you have time to talk?" And I was like, "Sure." And I thought he was going to talk to me about work or whatever. And he just starts laying out this full apology for everything. And I genuinely asked him, I said, "Are you okay? Like, are you dying?" And he said, "I promise I'm not dying." And I asked him, like, "Where is this coming from?"
Yeah.
And he said, "About a week ago," which was literally to the day that I was thinking about this. He said, "I just started thinking about what I would want to hear from my dad." And
Oh my gosh.
he just started reflecting on it, and he apologized to both of my sisters as well.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. How did you receive this?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very emotional. I didn't say much, and he didn't ask me to say much. It was a very...
Like, he needed it out there. He needed you
Yes,
to hear it, and he
yes.
didn't need you to do anything about it.
Yes. He was like, "I understand." I mean, he went so far as to say, like, "I understand if you don't like me. I understand that a forgiveness, like any sort of forgiveness is not going to be on the table anytime soon, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need anything from you. I just need you to know that I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Which
Way to go, Dad.
huge.
Like, what a statement.
I know.
What a statement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, my whole body has goosebumps over here. I'm just going to cry. I already know the story, but I'm just going to cry.
I know. I feel like I'm feeling the tears well up here. So this was a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Has anything changed in the last couple of weeks from your perspective towards your dad?
For a long time, I just had cut off the idea in my mind that I would ever have a real relationship or a healthy relationship with him ever again. And immediately after that conversation, I heard from my spirit guides, like, we have a beautiful life set out for you, and you're going to have a relationship with both of your parents.
Aww.
Which is something 5 years ago, I would have never thought was possible. And I mean, even like when I started college, I had like zero relationship with my mom. My relationship with my dad was so unhealthy and toxic. And now, looking back, I truly cannot believe that this is my reality. But I'm just so thankful for it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start crying.
I know. I'm like,
I feel like we need to like hit pause for a second.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I need to drink water.
yeah, I'm just like, man.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that ever would have happened if you had not started loving and respecting yourself first?
No. And honestly, like a few months before this conversation ever happened, every time I would see him, he would say to me, "You just look so happy. The light is returned to your eyes. I can see it. I can see how happy you are." And in the back of my head, I was like, yeah, no thanks to you, you know?
Right.
But I think that the work that I'm doing, I did not realize how much it was going to affect
Everyone.
Yeah.
Literally everyone.
Everyone around me. I mean, now my best friend and roommate is connected to you as well, and she's made some incredible strides. And based on the work that we've done, I've had incredible conversations with my mom about her own spirituality and her own self-worth, and she's made incredible strides to healing as well. And it's incredible, like, how many lives this work has touched.
Yeah. I'm so jazzed.
Me too.
Truly.
That's awesome.
So something that I think is, I want to touch on real quick, is that you have a gift. You have an innate ability to, I mean, I just feel like the downloads that come through for you it's just like crystal clear. There's no question. There's no like, what voice says this? Who's saying these things to me? Let me, get stuck in my head and fall on and not be able to take action, right? That connection is so strong that it hits and you're like, it's almost like a direct download into your heart, into your soul, right?
Yeah.
Was it always like that for you?
I feel like there was always the potential, because I've felt that potential, and I have 100%, like, even when I was a kid, my mom would talk about how I see spirits, or I see Jesus, or I'm talking to Jesus, or whatever. I have always had that connection, and I definitely understand, like, where I've cut myself off from it until now. I always just said, well, that's just like a voice in my head. Like, it's not actually, I just wrote it off. Whereas now I can make the distinction between the own voices in my head and the downloads. And that's been really fun and really cool, because when I do have those downloads, it's almost like a little giddy feeling.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. Like, I get a little insight into, like, what's coming next.
Yes.
And not too much that sometimes they scare me, but enough where I'm like, okay, I know where I'm headed, and I know where to go next. I know what to do next. I know how to feel about this.
Like a cheat code.
Yeah, genuinely, yeah.
How freaking cool.
Jealous.
And it's funny because I get them a lot in the shower.
Yeah.
So I've started, like, making a whole routine for myself when I get in the shower, just so that I can, like, prepare myself for what's coming, because a lot comes up in the shower.
That's my morning routine is I do my I bring in the light, ground, cleanse, all in the shower.
Yeah.
It's this like, and I almost feel like because the water is involved too, like it's this like connection piece for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Where it's really like Mother Earth, Grandmother Earth, Cosmic Mother, everything. Like just, I'm so grateful. I'm so honored and blessed to be a gift of yours in this moment, in your gift of water, because it's just my favorite. You know, I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's like a very spiritual moment, and so I love that you have adapted that and started, building those routines within your own life, where you're like, okay, let me prepare. This is usually pretty spiritually awakening.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite ready for that.
Absolutely.
Which is hilarious because my morning routine is wake up late, jump in the shower, run out the door like a maniac, and be late for work. So
well, that is my morning routine. I shower at night. I do not. Yeah, my morning routine is hectic and crazy, so I can really do that.
I feel like you were like on like the second 6 a.m. You're like, don't let me schedule these anymore.
Yeah,
just don't even offer them. Don't give them to me.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh man, I know that feeling though.
Yeah, don't even give them to me.
I'd be texting like at 5 a.m, driving the 45 minutes to come see you in the dark, and just being like, this is such a stupid.
This is stupid. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, exactly. But then it's the best thing ever, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, because she saved my life. Got it.
Yeah, genuinely.
I just opened the door, and then you guys, once you start to realize that the physical manifestation of the emotional symptoms is the pain you think you're experiencing, then my job is kind of done. It's like, I'll teach you all the physical stuff. I'll teach you the physical stuff on like how to recognize it, how to reduce it, teach you all the movements and things like that. Teach you the stretching, teach you the strengthening, teach you how to like actually treat the vessel that your soul is going to be living in. But then if you want that vessel to function the way that you want it to function, that's where the deep work comes into play. So that's what I should have been more clear.
Yeah,
I give you the tools in the like the Cliff's Notes of the user guide.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, now you need to go to college and learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, once they make the connection, you're like, okay, now you can move forward.
Because if the connection's not there, like, do you think if you were to have worked with Chelsy in 21 that you would have made the progress that you're making right now?
No, because I wasn't. You have to be open to it.
Yeah.
And I was so open to it. I was so excited. I was so open, especially when you explained your experience. I was like, I want that so bad. And I had like that exact same experience.
Yeah. Cinderella moment later.
Yeah, like you're my fairy godmother over here. But I love the word that you used earlier, like you feel honored. Because that's how I feel. Like I feel honored that I am where I am, because I know, yes, it took me being open, it took me doing all of these things, but I know, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, this is what was meant to happen for me. And I feel so honored that that I am here, and I am here at this age, because if I'm here now,
holy cow! I know.
Oh my goodness! I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be amazing.
Truly, I can't wait to see what like the next 5 years looks like for you.
Oh my gosh,
I can't wait.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so. It just blows my mind how.
Yeah. Just blows my mind. We could just end it at there. Blows my mind. Period. End of statement.
Done.
Yeah.
I don't even remember where I was going to go with that, because I'm just...
Well, I have to know, because it's been quite a transformation just even in the last few months compared to when I saw you last. When is overseas, like, au pair life still part of the plan for you?
Yeah, I have no idea what I want to do next. So it's an option. Yeah. But I still have like a year and a half to figure it out. So I'm not pressuring myself too much now, because I genuinely have no idea. So... Because I don't know that I want to step into a career right away. Because I understand, or I've been getting downloads that like this time in my life, the next few years are just to live. Because there are going to be more demanding times after that. And I need a strong foundation of who I am, what I want to do, who I want to be with, and what love looks like for me, how I receive it, how I give it. Like, I need to figure all of that out first in order to be able to have
awesome.
that life.
Because you're not looking for a career. It's almost like
A life internship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn all the skills. I'm going to see a lot of places. I'm going to meet a lot of people. And I'm going to see what I value in other people that I want to see in my own life.
And what it brings out in me.
Yeah.
Also, because I feel like that's also part of it, is that you're making these connections with people that are helping you see where you're getting pulled out of your shell and where you were limiting yourself previously. And I think that has also been a really incredible opportunity for you. You spoke about your roommate, which I think is obviously like a wonderful thing for you to have somebody so close that is going through the same work, so you're able to really talk to her about that. But especially in your love life as well, right? Like that has been a huge area of development and change. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in purity culture to the max. Like my mom was very open about sex. She was very she was always very open to having any type of conversation, any type of discussion. She always told me, though I would rather you wait until you're married, if this does happen, and I understand that it might because it happened to me, that's literally why you're here, I want you to be able to know that you can come and talk to me about it, and I'm not going to judge you, and we're going to figure it out.
Okay.
And that's what I was getting from her, but that's the only person I was getting that from.
Right.
Everyone else in my community, my peers, people in my church, like everyone else, it was like, this is the worst thing that you could possibly do to yourself or to someone else, is to, like, your future spouse, is to have sex before marriage or be sexually promiscuous, whatever that means. And so I kept myself in the dark for a really long time, and I made myself feel so ashamed of my own body. And only recently have I stepped out of that, like once I walked away from religion, but it's still so deeply embedded in me. I still, like, I call this year my sexual awakening year.
Good.
I'm very excited about it, and a lot has happened, and I'm realizing that with every experience that I have, I learn so much about myself. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, this is the only way I can describe it.
Go, say it.
You know when you're playing Mario Kart and you...
I'm going to love this analogy immediately. Immediately I love this analogy.
Okay, great. You know those, like, landing strips that, like, make you go super fast?
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like I'm on this landing strip and it goes zoom. With,
Twin
like,
turbos.
yeah, exactly. It feels like it's a turbo blast into understanding myself more. And it's an incredible realization because now I'm like, okay, now I can actually open myself up to this. I don't need to make myself feel ashamed or guilty or embarrassed for any of this. And I used to hide this part of myself a lot. And with each experience, I sit down with my roommates and we talk about it, like, full detail.
Yeah.
And that has helped immensely.
Yeah.
Just to be like, all the cards on the table, this is what happened, and to, like, kind of gush about it a little bit and be excited about it rather than ashamed or hide it away. Like, that has been an incredible, I guess, reframing of how I think about sex. And
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that there's a big, one of my biggest issues, I have a lot of issues with purity culture, but one of my biggest issues with purity culture is that, like, there's this, don't touch yourself, don't look at yourself, don't let anybody else do this, is evil, this is where the devil lives, like, this is, you know, this scary place, and then go put on a white dress and not go make a baby.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what?
I don't know how to love.
Yeah, and well, and I don't know what this is supposed to look like. I don't know, like, the amount of people who think that your first sexual experience is supposed to be painful, that's an actual standard understanding in women, that, like, you're supposed to bleed and it's supposed to be painful. No.
Yeah.
If you are actually aroused, if you spend the time on arousal, then it's not painful. And I was talking to, a couple years ago, you know Valerie, right? So we were chatting, and Valerie's another spiritual coach that I know. She spends a lot of time in, like, the secular feminine. She's fantastic. And one of the things that she was talking about is that, like, my understanding of what she was saying was that, like, the more you teach like teenagers and like, you know, younger teenagers and middle-aged teenagers about sexuality and self-exploration, they're much less likely to have teen pregnancies because they don't seek closeness and intimacy for sexual satisfaction because they know how to satisfy themselves. They don't look for that in another partner, and they don't value that as the pinnacle of the relationship because it's not necessary within the relationship anymore. They can give themselves that satisfaction, which I thought was an incredible realization about this. And with that purity culture and such the shaming and embarrassment about, you know, any sort of self-exploration, it's like, you know, it's such a sin and it's such a bad thing. It's like, well, then you still have hormones that are evolutionarily driving you to procreate. Like that, those hormones exist, they're there, and then you're putting these hormones into a brain where the frontal lobe, the decision making part of the brain, is not fully developed until mid-20s, and then we're going to be like, so don't do anything about this, and we're also not going to provide you with any education on what to do with this. And then you get people who get stuck in these relationships that are toxic, relationships that happen too early before they've really kind of learned who they are and what they want in a partner, relationships where oftentimes the woman in the relationship doesn't feel as though she has true autonomy over her body, that her body is to be there for her husband, which is also not accurate. And so I think it's awesome that you're having this experience now, because I think what it will do for you is it will increase your awareness of kind of when you feel genuinely close and connected to somebody versus when you feel like, I feel like I'm kind of being pushed into this. I feel like I'm kind of being coerced into this. Whereas like if you don't have any experience in that world and you think that your role is as a submissive second-class human where you're just an orifice through which somebody gets to stick their penis, then you have no autonomy. You don't have that comfort level and that safety within yourself to say, you know what, I actually like don't want to do this with you. And I'm okay saying no because I did 20 minutes ago, but then you said some things that maybe I don't really feel comfortable with, or you've postured yourself in a way that makes me feel a little bit threatened, and I want to say no now. So I'm super excited for you. That was my soapbox on purity culture. I apologize for those.
I could talk about it for
I love everything that you just said, especially because of the no. That's where you landed it, right? You are now experiencing your spiritual awakening with your no.
And with my yeses.
And with your yeses.
Because you're right, I did feel so submissive. I felt like my body was just a vessel for this person. Whereas now I'm like, no, I'm the one who has the power in this.
I get to decide if you get to come over here.
Yeah, exactly. And that power is, I mean, it's dumb to say, but it's empowered. It's empowering, you know?
Absolutely.
Like it gives me a lot more confidence in my daily life, in other aspects of my life. I felt a lot more confident with each experience because I know this is what I want to do, and I'm only going to do what I want to do. And you're not going to tell me any differently because that's not how this works.
Right. Well, and I think there's this aspect from the male perspective now, because I think there is a cultural awakening to hold boys accountable for their actions. The whole boys will be boys thing is like, we're not playing that game anymore. And now you have, you know, kind of a group of young men who are a little bit scared to address it, a little bit scared to approach it or to ask or to anything. And so just kind of like having this conversation on both sides so that both sides can feel confident and comfortable. We talk with our children a lot about enthusiastic consent. Like consent is not just consent. So the way that we describe it is like, okay, if you go over to this one friend's house, let's say we call him Johnny. We go over to Johnny's house and you say, hey, do you want to play basketball? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And then you go over to Mikey's house and you say, hey, do you want to play basketball? He's like, oh my gosh, yes, I have been waiting for you to come over and ask me to play basketball. I would love to play basketball with you. Who do you want to play basketball with? And they're like, oh, I want to go play with Mikey. It's like, absolutely, that's enthusiastic consent. So if you want to touch somebody else's body or you want them to touch your body, both people need to have enthusiastic consent, not just saying yes, not just saying like, yeah, I guess that's fine, because there are going to be people out there who do feel pressured into saying yes because of their surroundings and what the messages that they have been given. And it's kind of on the party of both people to say like, yes, I definitely want to do this. Yes, I definitely want to do this. Okay, let's do this. So we'll see if the message sticks. Who knows?
We'll see if the okay. I'm like, Allison needs to hold a sex education and consent class for the whole United States of America.
Yeah, please.
And she's like, we'll see if the theory sticks. I'm like,
I would love to. I'm happy to do that. I have a lot of friends who are like, I would love for you to have the sex talk with my children. I'm like, I would be more than happy to have the sex talk with your children. However, it's a very easy conversation to have with my children because we started having these conversations when they could start talking.
Exactly.
Like we have talked about body parts and all that kind of stuff from that age. And like I have a video of Aria before she was like getting ready to get in the shower and she was super tired. We had to wake up really early one day. She was so tired and she's like she was sitting on the toilet going potty. She's like, do I need to wash my hair? I go, yeah. Do I need to wash my arms? Yeah. Do I need to wash my belly? Yeah. Do I need to wash my vulva? Yeah. She goes, Mommy. I was like, yeah, Aria. She goes, vulva's on the outside, vagina's on the inside. I'm like, yep. Do I need to wash my legs? Sure. I'm like,
and that genuinely is something I didn't know until I got to college.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I was like, okay.
You're raising
My
children.
2-year-old
Change
knows
the
more.
world.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
But because we say words like that from the time that they can talk and it's not an awkward conversation, the sex talk becomes way easier. Whereas if your child is 12 years old and you've never said the words penis or vagina to them, or sperm and egg or period or uterus or bladder or anything like this, then like they're gonna feel super squirmy because their only association with this is through inappropriate jokes or somebody saying something on a show and the parents being like, you need to go, you can't watch this, you know, or just this shameful, embarrassed verbiage. And it's just gonna make things harder.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's part of why like you are such an incredible force is because you have this wealth of knowledge, but also this divine understanding in intimacy and the elements of intimacy and what has to be there in order for both parties to feel safe. And you have the ability to really, you're not teaching them sex ed from a first person perspective. Like it's an outside perspective. You're like Mikey and Johnny, enthusiastic consent. What? Like that's incredible. And it really takes someone that has had the life experiences that you've had to be able to bring that perspective. Like that's not what everybody does. That's not how they parent their children. And I understand that, I don't have kids, so sure. But ultimately, look at the world around us, right? Look at all the problems that we're dealing with. Look at all of the heartache and depression and sadness and assault and just trauma that there is. And a lot of it is because they don't know how to be in relationship with themselves, let alone be in a relationship with somebody else. And I feel like what you've done with your kids is really teach them how to be in relationship with themselves so that they can be in relationship with someone else in a healthy manner that allows someone like you to draw the boundaries and to exist and fully shine and be received. Like it's almost like you're doing the back end of the work too, so that way you're creating these children and these boys and these men that already have all of this wisdom ingrained in them. So when they are presented with this opportunity of a love connection that is so profound and so beautiful, they go after it and they don't run away from it because it scares them.
Well, I think one of the biggest disservices that came into the world of sexuality and came from people like in an understanding of what a sexual relationship was there was a study that was done, I want to say like in the 90s, where they looked at happy relationships and unhappy relationships, and they asked them how often did they have sex. And the relationships that were happy had sex more often than the relationships that were unhappy. And this false conclusion was drawn that if you're having more sex, you will be happier. And that was an incredibly false conclusion. When the truth of the matter is, because I think we all know somebody or have been in a relationship where sex was kind of used as a mask to cover up any problem that there was. It's like, oh, we're having a problem, let's just have sex and just ignore the entire thing, right? And so, like, I think that the bigger issue that was missed there was that the happy relationships are people who are communicating well. They're showing interest in things that are interesting to their partner. there's love and compassion, and then they are seeking this elevated level of love through physical connection. This like, and then a lot of people skip that, and there's a lot of people out there who are like, my love language is physical intimacy, my love language is physical touch, I need that as part of my relationship. And it's like, maybe you do. I'm not sitting here saying you don't need that. I know a lot of people out there who like, Aria, for God's sakes, we just had her parent teacher conference yesterday, and she's like, she loves her our next door neighbor is like in her class, and they're best friends. And like the teacher will look over during a math lesson, and Aria's just literally like hanging on him and hugging him. And so it's like, I think she just like, she loves so much, and she does love that, right? There are people who are like that. But to say that the physical component of the relationship is the most important component of the relationship is a complete fallacy, because that physical component of the relationship should be the highest level of love, like the pinnacle of the triangle that you have built on top of the foundation of mental and emotional and spiritual intimacy through time. Versus, now that is not to say that I'm talking about committed relationships. I am not talking about self-exploration or, a sexual awakening or things like that. I'm talking about people who are in committed relationships who are trying to say that we need to be having sex in order for this to work, because it's not accurate. I see tons of patients who have, happy marriages, and one partner has erectile dysfunction, or the other partner has severe pelvic pain, or had a pelvic cancer and now has stenosis, and they have incredibly fulfilling relationships. So if that was true, that the happier the relationship, or that to have a happy relationship you have to have sex, if that were true, then these other people wouldn't be happy.
I could just sit over here with my hand in the air in the corner if you'd like. Like I couldn't even tell you. Matt proposed. I couldn't even tell you how many months it had been since we had touched each other, because I couldn't physically tolerate it. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that that's something that I have been super blessed with our relationship, is that like sexual intercourse is an expression of love.
Yes.
And I think that that's the gift that you have given yourself now without even realizing it, is that like you've done the work to build that relationship with yourself and find that love for yourself, and now you're out searching for someone who's receiving of that love and who's going to give it back, who can see you, and not just who's going to receive it and take it, right? And I know that
shared experience now.
Yes,
versus like shared experience. I'm obligatorily giving you.
Yes,
I'm just like a passerby.
Yeah,
right.
Or like I'm just And I think for the first time in 3 years since my last relationship ended, I'm actually open to a relationship again, which is wild. I didn't think that this would happen this soon, because I've just been so cut off from it, because my last relationship ended just not well, and really left me questioning everything about myself. What did I do wrong? What did he do wrong? And ultimately it just left me angry at the whole situation and at him. And I feel like I'm finally at a place where the anger is gone, and I just recognize that we were both just young kids trying to figure it out together, and he was going through things just the same way I was, and we were in each other's lives when it was necessary, and then when it wasn't, we parted ways, and that's okay. And seeing relationships more as, this is what I need, or not necessarily what I need, this is what's could be good for me right now and in this moment and in the next however long. But as soon as it's not, I feel like I have the confidence to say, okay, this is not serving me anymore, this is not serving you anymore, let's part ways. And I think that was the biggest struggle I had with my last relationship, because we were together for like 5.5 years, and we should have broken up like 6 months before we did. We were just both so scared. When we sat down and we actually like decided that this is what we were gonna do, we were gonna break up, I had initiated it, and he thanked me. He was like, I thank you for initiating this, because we both know that this needed to happen, and I'm just thankful that you brought it up, because I don't know that I would have had the strength to. So, yeah, but now I finally feel like like you opened up like my heart wall, and I feel like I have so much love to give now and so much room to receive it.
That's a
And
huge part.
yeah.
So I feel like a lot of times people want it, like they're okay giving.
Yeah.
You know, I have so much more to give now. So much more to give now.
Mhm.
But to hands up.
Yeah.
But to be able to receive is huge.
And huge for me because I've been so closed off from it for so long, even in my friendships.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I live with 3 amazing women, and I've known one of them. I've known Marissa for 10 years.
Wow.
And which is just the sweetest thing that she gets to see, like, this growth
Yeah.
that I'm doing.
Truly.
And she's
Full
like one of my
circle.
biggest cheerleaders. But to have them there, and even just to be able to accept their love more and to be able to give them more of my love it hasn't just improved my romantic relationships, but
Right.
my friendships as well, and even my relationships with my family and my sisters. It's touched every single relationship in my life. It's been amazing.
I just feel like you're just this source of just pure love.
You just
And
like feel it when she walks
radiating.
in.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh,
It's just this
I'll take the
yeah.
hug now. Thank you.
Exactly.
And I'm such a hugger. I'm like, I need to, like,
I need you to have this love.
yeah,
Let's take it.
I need to give it to you.
Oh, you have so much
So
love
do
to
you
give.
find that now that your own self-love has increased so exponentially in the last couple of years, do you find it is like, do you find that when other people in your life are having success, and maybe success that you were hoping to have as well, do you find that you can come at that with a different energy?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Do you find that you're more
absolutely.
like genuinely excited for that person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which that's something that I've never been a competitive person, and so I don't I guess externally compare myself to people, but internally I definitely do that, where especially with one of my roommates, she knows exactly what she wants to do. She's like on a roll. She's got not necessarily her whole life planned out, but she really is very passionate in the career that she's about to start. And I'm so happy for her. But there is a part of me that thinks, gosh, I wish I had that. I wish I knew what I wanted to do. But now I see, well, I'm not supposed to know right now. I'm supposed to figure it out in a different way. And she just has this part figured out, and that's okay. I'm happy that she has it figured out. I just don't. And accepting that, and accepting where I'm at right now, and trying my very best not to compare it to other people, because that was, definitely.
It's toxic.
It is.
It's it's
so toxic.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of us are in that, and I feel like it's been indoctrinated in us. You know, like, did you guys ever like have a test when you were a kid, and your parents would ask you how you did? Okay, well, how did everyone else do?
Yeah.
You know, it was always that question, well, how did they do? Because they're already comparing, because they were shown to compare, right?
course, yeah.
And so it's like, I find that to be like one of my hardest things when I'm talking to my kids about stuff, is like, stop asking about how the other kids did. Stop. Because it's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you got an 8 on your math test. That's awesome. Was this out of 8? Was this out of 100? I don't know how to respond to this,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it'll be things like that where you're just like, okay, like, I don't, but it's a hard thing to break that habit.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to like ingrain that in my kids of like that comparison.
I
But
feel
they
like-
get that across, like, it's not just coming from parents.
Right, no, not at all. But I think that goes back to that mindset of there only being so much good in the world. There's only so much good and there's only so much bad. So, like, if your suffering isn't worse than their suffering, your suffering does not matter. It's not trauma. It's not worthy of having any attention. You just need to suck it up and go to work, essentially. And at the same time, if you don't do it first, it's not going to matter. If you don't write that book first, then you're not going to write the book because they've already written it.
Exactly.
Right? And what we're saying is that, like, the way that the universe works, the way that energy works, the way that unconditional love works, and the way that this whole universe was designed is that there is an infinity of love. There's an infinity of joy, and all we have to do is open our minds and see it. And as soon as we do, then we can allow ourselves to receive it. But when we come from that limited mindset, it's always going to be, well, how did the other kids do? Right? Well, are you sure you don't think that you should have like a career figured out? Because like, what if she does this career and is so happy and you fall on your face? Well, guess what? You're sitting here and saying to me that you understand that if you fall on your face, there was a lesson in it, and that it's going to be a positive experience in the long run, right? Does the mindset of there's only so much good, and if you don't get it first, you're not going to get it, that doesn't breed resiliency. That doesn't give strength. That doesn't give us motivation or tenacity or dedication or commitment. That gives us drama. That gives us fear. That gives us jealousy, negative vibrations, just all of them. Right? Yeah. And it's like, if we can just shift that mindset of the people that we connect with towards allowing there to be that infinite amount of love and joy, you've already described how it's changing everybody around you, the ripple effect, right? How incredible. Just by you going on this journey within yourself, you're changing the world and spreading love all around you.
Yeah. And I think that for when I first started doing this, I was like, oh, that's selfish. Because I'm changing myself. I'm doing things for myself, and even though it is like for the benefit of other people as well, like I'm still helping myself more than I'm helping anyone else, and I can't do that. And now seeing like just how much it does help other people and how important it is to know myself, understand myself, and love myself, and even like myself.
Yeah.
I have to do all of that first before I can even start to put a Band-Aid on someone else. Like I mean it's the classic, like you have to take the thorn out of your own eye before you can before you can, to go back to the Bible. But that's been a huge part, and we just talked about in our last session the whole idea of ego, and I'm so afraid of my ego because empathy is so important to me and justice is so important to me that I feel like if I let my ego in, I'm going to become this person that I hate. The opposite of what I want to be, the opposite of everything I believe in. I'll become too prideful, or I'll put myself too much above others, and that's just not the case at all. You need your ego to guide you, and to give like me confidence and understand myself even more, because it's a part of me. It is a part of me whether I like it or not. Right. So understanding that part of me, I think, is going to be one of my next like big steps.
Oh yeah. I can tell you that it's going to be, because one of the gifts that I get in this life, in this career, in this whatever I'm doing right now, is that I get to see my story unfold externally in the clients that I work with. So it is just so magical and so reassuring and validating, and like just a gift to be able to be on your team and walk through this journey with you, because you are going through the changes that I've gone through, but like you said, in the twin turbo speed, where I'm like, I didn't learn that lesson until I was like 25. You know? And so I'm just sitting here like, that's part of...
That's super late, Chelsea. 25.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know,
35.
It's just that like, that I think that is also like part of the difference in the work that we do and how it collaborates together, is that like, you're very foundational. You are very much foundational. And if that trust, if that connection to your body hasn't been fostered and reconnected, what I do has no hope. But then when my work comes into play, you get to see the like external evolution, and it brings it back full circle, because whatever lesson you're learning, I am also learning, and so are you. And it's just, the synchronicity is beautiful and magical and absolutely incredible, and provides me with such faith and belief, because you can't make this shit up.
No.
You truly can't.
my life has been so unbelievably cyclical recently. I mean, I feel like I can see the patterns in real time now. Like, it's just absolutely insane how much I can connect one experience from another, and see how both of those go together, and how this happened, even though it might have, like my childhood, for example, like everything that happened with that, I finally understand like why I went through that, and where it's leading me now, and that has been the greatest source of healing for me.
That's awesome. I have one last question. I don't know how more Chelsea has, but I have one last question. So you're at this phase of this massive transformation. You're seeing the whole world and you within it in a totally different light. And you have kind of set a new foundation, a new precedent for what your relationships look like with people. And I don't know if you experience this because you're early 20s, right?
Yeah. I'm 22.
Okay. So when I was in my mid-20s, I went through this period where I thought I knew everything. And, like, everybody around me was an idiot if they didn't do it the way that I did. So how do you handle knowing the work that you put in and how transformative that has been for you when you are around other people who don't choose to make those same transformations but choose to complain about their situation?
I love this question.
How do you handle that?
That's really, really hard for me because, and I am not trying to boast when I say this, but I am very young. There are not a lot of people who have the same mindset as me.
No.
And
No, absolutely not.
I feel bad. I feel not pity, but I do feel a lot of empathy for these people because I see myself in these people. But at the end of the day, I also feel very lonely in that because I can give them advice, I can do that, but that's not always like what they want. That's not always what you want. You just want someone to listen, and that's all I try to do. But at the end of the day, it can get lonely when there are not a lot of people who are on the same trajectory as you, and you don't have a lot of people to talk to about it. That's why I'm so incredibly grateful for the two of you, because
you text us.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll get a great
Yeah,
Or you
exactly.
text us, and then and
Exactly.
we'll be like, we'll be over the moon for you, because it does feel lonely. And like hearing people who are like, well, you're just lucky, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, that is one of my hot button issues. Is when people are like, well, you're just so lucky that you have a husband who's so supportive, and you're just so lucky that you have a job with flexible hours, and you're just so lucky that blah 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 blah, right? And it's like, well, no, I made active decisions. I created this life, and I spent time doing the deep work with lots of hours of sobbing.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes they're sad sobs and sometimes they're happy sobs, and sometimes you have no idea why you're sobbing, and it's just happening.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, and it was hard and all that kind of stuff. And when you have people around you who don't choose to continue to keep doing the same things, and then getting frustrated that they're having the same results, and not jumping in and saying like, well, you know,
we could do this.
We could perhaps
Yeah.
restructure the way we're thinking about this, right? And so,
Yeah, that happens a lot with my sisters because I'm the oldest. I have two younger sisters, and oh my gosh, I think that's the most frustrating part of this is talking to them, especially because I know the three of us were chosen to break this generational trauma. Like, we are very powerful women, and I hate to see them not reaching their full potential or not seeing how powerful they are in the ways that you're saying, like, this is happening and it keeps happening and I'm frustrated with this. Well, you are so powerful. Like, if you just look at it from a different perspective, you can change that. And we've talked about this as well, where there's only so much that I can do and say for them, because this is not my burden to carry. When I carry it, like you said, when I carry it, it feels so heavy. But it's just a drop in their bucket. They're not even gonna know that
you're holding on to
yeah,
it.
that I'm holding on to it, because it's for them to figure out on their own. And I can be a guide. I can be there to help them and guide them. And if they need anything, I will absolutely be there. But I can't will them to change. So
that was a hard lesson. That took me years to learn in my 20s.
Took her about 3 weeks.
I know. She's like literally.
I done told you.
Are you like? Do you manifest your life while you're playing Mario Kart? Is that how it works? Like,
I actually
whatever
am really bad at Mario Kart. I am not good at Mario Kart.
You got the live action version. It's fine.
I'm actually pretty good.
I was gonna say, why do we not play Mario Kart? That's what we should have done. Is we should have started this podcast earlier, and then we should have all played Mario Kart together.
That would have been
That would have been
next
next time.
session.
Next time, yeah, I was gonna say next round.
Yes.
Next month when you come on to tell us about the 7 different lives you've lived in the 30 days.
Exactly.
We'll have a Mario Kart ending. It'll be great.
It'll be a video game podcast.
Heck yeah.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Oh my gosh.
And we could talk about how life is a video game.
And it is. Wow. And it is.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm just gonna go ahead and take this power up to enhance my life. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Just busting the wind blocks as we go.
Oh.
One of my favorite quotes recently is, "It's just life. There's more after." And like, yeah, life is so important and so valuable and can teach you so many things. But if you mess up and you like for an example for me, I beat myself up so much like when I don't like perform perfectly with academics. And for me, it's like, yeah, I know.
It's weird.
But so for me, it's like, okay, I didn't do perfect with this. It's just life. There's more after. Like, I can make a mistake, and it will not matter in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably because that mistake was supposed to happen. There's supposed to be a lesson somewhere for you to figure it out, right?
Exactly.
Well, there was a good, I want to say it was Alex Ramosi who said it when he was like, when he was making decisions or anything like that. He's like, is this decision going to matter and he gave like a period of time. Is it going to matter in 30 years or 30 days, a year, 5 years, 500 years? Is anybody going to care about this thing that happened? If they don't, I'm not going to want to bother me. And I was like, okay. It's time to start letting some things go here. Like, oh no, I didn't read to Aria last night. I'm a terrible mom. Is she not going to learn how to read because on that one Tuesday night I didn't read to her? Probably not. She's probably going to be okay. She'll probably figure it out.
She
out.
knows where her vulva is and her vagina. That's fine. Oh my god.
And that's the takeaway of the podcast today, ladies and gentlemen, is that the vulva's on the outside and the vagina's on the inside.
Yes.
And if you need help finding it, Aria will be the one teaching next round.
Yes.
With Allison as her teaching assistant.
I would be her teaching assistant.
Yeah.
She'd be like, no, Mom, you just sit down. I got this.
Yeah. Very much so.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. This was absolutely enlightening, and I hope that everybody was able to get a really good glimpse as to what a real-time, life-changing story looks like, and how setbacks or relapses or anything like that don't have to be scary. You don't have to fear the flare. It's just information, and don't worry, it's just life.
Yeah.
There's more after.
There's more after.
Yeah.
And fall in love with yourself because that's all that matters.
Yeah. Exactly.
This has been incredible. I'm just so grateful.
I'm so thankful.
So grateful and so.
And we're going to get that group text going to support each other and play Mario Kart.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
There it is.
Gotta play those, like, what are they? Like the 8-ball in that Apple has, like those little games. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay. You're 15 years old. Okay? So there might be some things going on that I don't know about.
we'll discuss it. We'll figure it out.
She's like, okay, I'll teach you. It's
She's
fine.
like, all right, Grandma, come on over to the phone. Let me show you this.
What are these young kids doing these days?
Oh my gosh.
Incredible. All right.